Brought to you by DK Audio.
DK Audio presents Ancient Greece, The Definitive History by DK, read by Daphne Kouma. Introduction. In this book, we tell the story of Greece, from the appearance of early humans in Greece around 400,000 years ago to the end of the Byzantine Empire in the 15th century CE. By Greece, we mean not only the territory that bears this name today, but the lands where Greek culture flourished. At its furthest extent, in the Hellenistic period, Greece stretched from its colonies in southern Italy and Sicily in the west as far as the borders of India in the east, and to the south it encompassed Egypt. Under the early Byzantine Empire, while the easterly regions were no longer Greek, parts of North Africa and southern Spain would be added to this picture. Greece's story is one of conflict. At a local level, strife between the individual city-states that made up the Greek world was endemic. The Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta being just the most extensive example of a well-established pattern of competition for resources and preeminence. And yet, in the early 5th century BCE, the city-states came together to drive back the threat of Persia in a clash of epic proportions. Conflict also characterized the 4th century BCE, with Alexander the Great's demolition of the Achaemenid Empire and conquest of its territories, and continued into the 3rd to 1st centuries BCE as Alexander's successors fought to establish and preserve their divisions of his empire, until the rising power of Rome swept all away. From its earliest beginnings, the ancient Greek world was highly visual. The Cycladic, Minoan, and Mycenaean cultures of the Bronze Age produced a wealth of sculpture, painted pottery, wall paintings, and small-scale artifacts in precious metals. The culture that then emerged in the early Iron Age applied geometric patterns to its early artworks, but quickly developed techniques in both sculpture and painting borrowed from Egypt and the Eastern Mediterranean to facilitate the representation of the human form. Impetus for this was provided by the Greeks' love of storytelling, as first evidenced in the Homeric epics with their tales of the Trojan War, and in stories of gods and goddesses, heroines and heroes, and men and women that were retold again and again in later poetry, drama, and prose. Storytelling in visual form often required the use of name labels to help identify specific characters in vase and wall paintings, alongside the development of an iconographic language of costume and attributes, so that we can recognize, for example, the god Poseidon by his trident, and the hero Heracles by his lion skin and club. As time went on, over the archaic and classical periods, architectural techniques developed too, so that stone temples, gymnasia, theatres, civic buildings, and colonnaded stoas began to provide a monumental backdrop to daily life. These structures formalized the space for religious worship, dramatic and athletic contests, political debate, commerce, and social exchange. In the Hellenistic and early Roman periods, stylistic influences from all over the Mediterranean were taken up by Greek artists, with an increasing interest in landscape and realism in sculpture and wall painting, while new art forms such as mosaic were developed. The wealth of the surviving material culture, alongside literature and inscriptions, allows us to reconstruct a great deal of the story of ancient Greece. And new discoveries and new interpretations are adding to our knowledge, particularly of groups poorly represented in the world of Greek literature, such as women, children, and disabled people. The legacy of ancient Greece can be traced in modern political thought, especially the ideal of democracy, in the modern sciences that descended from Greek philosophy, in literature and drama, in the visual arts, and in the stories that continue to be told in myriad forms in modern popular culture. An understanding of ancient Greece is fundamental to an understanding of the world we live in today. Greek and World History. A timeline of dynasties, empires, and global events. Ancient Greece was home to the earliest advanced civilization in Europe, and one of the earliest in the world. In your accompanying PDF, you'll find a chart comparing Greece with some of the world's other great civilizations, offering a selection of key events and innovations that put its history in a wider context. Between around 3200 to 1100 BCE, ancient Greece was in the Bronze Age. Other world empires and kingdoms in this time included ancient Egypt, the Indus Valley Civilization, Sumerian Civilization, and the ancient Andean Civilization, the early dynastic period Mesopotamia and Akkadian Empire, with dynastic China and Assyria emerging around 2000 BCE. At around 3100 BCE, early Cycladic culture emerges in the Aegean Islands. In other empires, Narmer unifies Egypt. In around 3000 BCE, Sumerians in Mesopotamia develop the first known writing system. In 2667 BCE, the Djoser Step Pyramid is constructed in Egypt, and around 2600 BCE sees planned cities in the Indus Valley and the stone circle erected at Stonehenge in England. In 2300 BCE, Sargon the Great founds the Akkadian Empire in Mesopotamia. In ancient Greece, in around 2000 BCE, the first Minoan palaces are constructed on Crete. Later, around 1700 BCE, is the start of the early Mycenaean period on mainland Greece. Outside of Greece, in around 1790 BCE, Hammurabi establishes a legal code for the Babylonian Empire. In 1550 BCE, the New Kingdom period begins in Egypt, marked by powerful pharaohs such as Ramses, and in 1500 BCE is the development of the Rig Veda, one of the oldest sacred texts of Hinduism in the Indian subcontinent. Back in Greece, around 1450 BCE, Minoan civilization declines, possibly owing to natural disasters and Mycenaean invasions. Between 1200 to 800 BCE, the timeline enters the Greek Dark Age. In 1200 to 1190 BCE, Mycenaean civilization collapses. And around the 12th century BCE is also the Homeric date of the Trojan War, if it was a real event. Elsewhere in this period, around 1003 BCE, the Jewish King David unites Israel and Judah. And around 1046 BCE, the Zhou dynasty takes power in China's longest-lasting dynasty. Between 900 to 800 BCE, the Greek alphabet is developed from the Phoenician alphabet, and between 900 to 700 BCE, we also find a geometric period in art, characterized by pottery painted with geometric patterns. 1100 to 750 BCE also sees the early Iron Age. Between 750 to 500 BCE is the Archaic Age. In this period, the first Olympic Games are held in Olympia, in 776 BCE. The epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, are composed between 750 to 700 BCE, and between 730 to 710 BCE. We see the rise of the city-state, or polis, with Sparta and Athens gaining prominence. Around 650 BCE, the introduction of the hoplite phalanx military formation revolutionized Greek warfare. And in 594 BCE, Solon laid the foundations for democracy in Athens. Elsewhere in the world, the Phoenicians founded Carthage on the coast of North Africa around 814 BCE, and in 753 BCE, Rome is founded, and Romulus becomes the city's first king. In 650 BCE, the earliest known coins are minted in Ephesus, and 563.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?